Hi people, how are you guys doing? So this is me, Makalasi, and I like to just send stuff to quick clarification and to let people understand their path a little bit more and ask right questions, right? So what I realize though is in spirituality, there's a lot of inversion of original spirituality. So for example, if you're a Gen X like me and you're from the 80s, you know that back in the days we used to have like all like this talking about Satanism, right? And we used to talk about the 80s, like, oh, they invert, they do things backwards, everything's always reversed. They do child abductions and rituals and stuff like that. But then you hear that they don't talk about it anymore. So from my understanding, is it's true. A lot of the stuff that they do is actually inverted. So they do that because what they're doing, they're like the false kings like to wear. They like to play the game of being sheep, wolves in sheep clothing is what I like to call it. And you can know that because they like to take things that are divine, infiltrate it, and then sell it back to us, but use it because so it works in two ways. Because if they do use something divine, they know that we have reverence for it. But then what they do is they take something divine and they use so much disrespect for it. But remember, we get shocked because we're like, oh well, they're divine, so it's okay. But in reality, they're not divine. They're disrespecting it in our face, and they're perverting our reverence for it. Example, so the four elements, right? The four elements are not complicated. We need water, we need fire, we need earth, right? These are just simple things. We need air to survive. And that's why in Christianity, the original Christianity, esoteric Christianity, they built up on it, right? Because four elements is basically, you can't argue with that. Those are the things that we need to survive: water, air, earth. And what they did is they built up on it, and instead they said, oh, it's evil. So then they demonize earth, but you need earth to understand yourself, because earth is your mother. So then what they do is they demonize the mother. They took the elements. They, instead of making it where the spirit was on top of the elements, they inverted it where the elements were on top of the spirit. They demonize the woman, but you need the woman because you need the divine feminine is the one that gives birth to the divine masculine. So they demonize the feminine. They also made Jesus white. Would it make more sense that he'd be more indigenous or more into earth? So, they also took things like, for example, Hebrew. We need Hebrew because it'll give us the consciousness to understand the diagrams of the tree of life. The tree of life, for me particularly, I didn't really need the Bible because that has been corrupted by the Council of Nicaea. All you really need is the tree of life, because that diagram can access your subconscious mind, which is connected to divine feminine. So what they did is they said the tree of life was evil and Kabbalah was evil. Same thing with Jewish mysticism. We need Jewish mysticism to understand ourselves. Well, particularly I needed it. So I've noticed that what they did is they infiltrated Jewish mysticism, and then they, like what's happening in Palestine, they infiltrated Jewish, and then they're using it as like a decoy to put on their agenda. So a lot of things has to be analyzed because it's a really tricky game. What they did is, I think this was a plan all along. They tricked the mother. They went into the earth, they cut down her tree, so therefore we wouldn't have access to the mother and we wouldn't have access to ourselves, and therefore they want to be gods of the lower world, basically gods of our lower self. Hijacked everyone, put magic in everyone, suppressed everyone, oppressed everyone, and then they said that they were the gods of the lower world. Well, you're gods because you have to put magic on everyone. So that the thing is, but they didn't realize that the upper world is in our DNA, right? Like they cut down the tree, they cut down everything, but all we had to do was just remember. And once you remember, the Holy Spirit will activate in us. And that's what they did not want to do. So a lot of times you have to be paying attention, because what they did is they've inverted stuff. And that's why if you look at like the stories of like the upside down world, it's kind of true. They basically made everything upside down. They were just basically inversion. So that's my video. Hope you like it. Peace.